do something. Start a podcast, tweet, do something. You'll find a lot more friends that way.
Right. Like there's 700 Python courses and they're all mediocre.
Yep. Udemy.
And so,
sorry, should I say that? Did not say that?
Yeah.
You can edit it
out. I'm back. Adam's back. We're back. You were episode 3, I think, of Backend Banter.
Whoa, I didn't know this. I was early. I got in early.
Okay, so we just you just hopped off your live stream. You were episode 3 way back in the day. I actually want to say, did we start our podcasts about the same time? Have you been going for a little over a year?
Yeah, a little over a year. I think so.
Okay.
Maybe getting close to 2 years. Now, this is not related to your question, but I got to know who number 1 and number 2 were. I was number 3. Who did you like before me?
Oh, that's a good question.
Who did you choose?
So TJ, actually, I didn't. This was not planned. This was not planned. Episodes 1, 2, and 3, I believe, are the terminal.shop team.
That's what I wondered. I actually wondered if Tej got in there and was Prime. It was Prime, Tej, and me. So
Prime took
Dax,
a while. Prime was like 16.
Oh, was it Dax?
Yeah, it was TJ, Dax, and then you, I think.
Okay.
I'm gonna go check right now because I've got to know.
So funny.
That was back before. That was when we were using AI to edit.
Ooh.
Yep.
Spicy.
TJ, Dax, and then Adam.
That is amazing. And here we are making coffee. We're just a bunch of back-end devs. We don't have any front-end devs. We're all just back-end devs.
It's the mullet stack. It's really good. I've got my terminal coffee here, by the way.
Oh, nice. Are you drinking it right now? That's amazing. I love it.
Got to stay energized. That's actually a question I had for you. So famously, you don't really drink coffee, or at least you didn't. That seems like a bad look.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I'm back on it. I'm back on that caffeine train. I'm an addict again. Dax doesn't. Never picked it up.
He still doesn't.
Still doesn't. Even after packing all the beans in the bags, nothing lured him in. So we all drink coffee except for Dax. But yeah, I went like 2 years, I think, without drinking coffee. And even made some spicy tweets about how caffeine was ruining everybody. And I still believe it, but now I'm selling it. So
full on regress. Yeah. That's that's like giving up cigarettes and going to work at a cigarette company. And all right, we're back at it.
Exactly. We're back. I mean, it's just so good. Is it like, I wouldn't be addicted to it if it wasn't so good. It just feels good. Making it feels good. Drinking it feels good. I just enjoy it.
So here's my story about coffee. I grew up Mormon, LDS. I'm no longer religious, but that was how I grew up. And you don't drink coffee as a Mormon. It's,
I only learned that very recently. I did not know this about the caffeine. Yeah, I didn't know that was I guess it makes sense. No stimulants. It's a drug. I mean, it's a drug.
No. Common misconception. Caffeine is totally okay.
Really? Just not coffee?
Just not coffee and not green tea, like the tea leaf.
Okay.
At least today. The rules have, they've been a little fluid over the last 200 years. Sure. But that's how it's interpreted today. And there's more soda shops in Utah, like on the various street corners, than coffee shops. Like we've got all these things called like Sodalicious and Swig. Like you can get these 44-ounce dirty Dr. Peppers, and like that's totally okay.
So it's not caffeine. I made the assumption, actually. Somebody told me they didn't drink coffee. They were Mormon, and I just assumed it was the caffeine. But you drink soda. Like that was fine.
It's a reasonable assumption. But yeah, I didn't drink coffee like my whole life, and then I left the church like when I was 24-ish. And
we can talk about that too. I mean, I left my faith as a child, the faith that I had as a child. I don't know. I'm saying too many words. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah.
Yeah, we should. My favorite episode of TomorrowFM, I think, was when you guys weirdly got into like dinosaurs and religion.
Dinosaurs and religion. Sounds like our podcast in one episode. Why not?
Funny how those two things intertwine with fundamentalist faiths.
Yeah. It's funny.
But yeah, I didn't drink coffee, and then I left the church, and then like I waited I wasn't like waiting around, but I was like, I should try this coffee thing. Like I've never tried it before. And I was at work, and someone was like, "Do you want some coffee?" And I was like, "Well, there's no reason anymore why I shouldn't try it." And now I'm an addict. So I mean, there is
like objectively, there are some reasons. Like it's objectively awful tasting, but like we all learn to like it. It's such a weird thing that like I started drinking it socially because my whole family is super into drinking coffee, and we'd have these like family get-togethers, and they'd all be drinking coffee, and I just felt like I could do that. Like, why don't I do that? I just never was curious before that. But the first time you start drinking coffee, it's like, this is awful. Why? Like, are you guys gaslighting me? Like, what's going on? Why does everyone drink this and act like they like it? And then you do it for like a week and you're into it and you're addicted. And there's just a different feeling when you got that caffeine buzz. It's good stuff. Terminal.shop.
Terminal.shop.
Just gotta get that in there.
You got a coupon code or anything?
Yeah, not yet. We're not even selling coffee. Ironically, we're the worst coffee salesman in the world because you can't buy it. But soon it's coming. You
guys are all influencers in your own right, so it's not like you need to like go outside of your little bubble to to pump the numbers.
Yeah.
Is that Prime's job, like chief influencer officer? I don't know how that works.
Yeah, because like I can tweet about it, but who cares? Like Prime can get on his stream and say terminal.shop and we have instant traffic. That's what's been so funny about, I know this is not back-end related, but the funny thing about the coffee business is like all the things I thought you needed to do for e-commerce, like drip campaigns and all this random stuff that I had like heard vaguely. I've never done e-commerce, but I've like heard of it. It just doesn't matter when like Prime has this giant sphere of influence. And Teach too, like they can just kind of like talk about it and we get all the traffic we want. So we don't have to like think about customer acquisition or any of that stuff. It's just like, can we design cool bags and sell coffee? Yeah, we can.
Well, as someone who's deeply partnered with Prime and Teach on my product, I can tell you can bring even more traffic with good drip campaigns.
Yeah, sure. I guess we'll eventually run dry and need to do stuff. But yeah,
it's not run dry. It's just like, there's always more. There's so many people on this planet. Like you just
biggering and biggering and biggering. The Lorax, anybody? No? That's one of my favorite like kids books. I read to my kids and there's just like a handful of the books that you actually enjoy as an adult. Like the rest of them, you're just getting through it because that's what they want. The Lorax is one I actually enjoy. I enjoy the Lorax, the biggering and biggering. Sorry.
No, this is a topic. This is a good topic, actually. I have been steeped in children's literary material over the last couple of years.
And you're well aware. Yeah.
Yes,
like you've experienced this. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and nothing bothers me more than a clearly low effort children's book where like the rhymes don't quite they're all over and they make tons of money and the rhymes don't quite match up. It's like you only had to write 15 sentences for this book. So I really appreciate Dr. Seuss because when like the man would make up words to get the rhyme, right? Like and to me that's bold. Important. Like if you can't make up the rhyme, don't stick in a word that doesn't quite rhyme. That'll just piss me off. But like, just you can make up something up.
Yeah. Oh, he's amazing. All the Dr. Seuss books are so good.
Agreed.
Not a topic I thought we'd cover, but I'm glad we got here.
It would have gotten us canceled a while ago.
Oh, really? Did he get canceled?
Yeah, he got canceled. And like to be fair, I actually know nothing about it. So like whether he deserved to get canceled or not, I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
I don't know. Yeah,
I think there was
Kevin
Spacey's
back though.
But
Kevin Spacey's back.
Oh, is he back?
Hear. I think so. I think he's back on the circuit.
Is there like a board that like decides
for canceled people? Oh, I'm sure. Oh, board of people. They made like a web page where they listed them all.
It seems like so official. People are like, I got canceled. Like it was this binary thing that happened, and then like a few years later, it like unhappens somehow. And I don't know how that's decided.
Do you get a membership card to the canceled community?
Exactly. Or do you
Let's find out. Let me just say, I got something to say here. I just want to test this theory. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to say anything.
gonna make us go viral in the wrong way.
Yeah, right. That's what editors are for. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I have a question about terminal coffee. On a scale of like, I don't know, from Prime to DAX, like how serious is the business?
That's awesome. From Prime to DAX. I mean, it's serious in the sense that like we're all very excited to do it. Like I think everyone, there's 5 of us, right? So I think everyone has slightly different motivations, slightly different things that they'd like to get out of it. But I think we all agree that like to the extent that it could do well and we could all spend more time working on terminal, we would love that because it's so much fun. Like it's just kind of like the ideal work environment when it's just a bunch of your friends and literally everything we do is fun when it comes to terminal. Like there's no like annoying parts. Maybe there will be eventually, but like right now there's just so much energy and so much excitement that working on it is just a ton of fun. So I think like there's obviously like businesses need to make money, and there's like that whole side of it that it needs to do well to continue investing time in it. But I think for most of us, that's like enough of a reason. I hope it succeeds just so we can spend more time on it because it's a lot of fun. But it's serious. I mean, we're serious about like delivering good coffee. We've spent a lot of time making sure we're getting good product and delivering that.
The fact that it's fun does mean a lot coming from the intern.
Yeah. That's the funny thing is we don't really have like titles, or we haven't really like even talked about it yet. So it's funny to like make jokes about who the CEO is on Twitter, because it's like, we make jokes about all of it. It's just different every week. Like it doesn't matter at this point, but eventually I guess that stuff will matter.
I hate to break it to you, but Dax is the CEO.
He is like in spirit. I mean, if there's anybody, it's just like, I don't know if there's an official, maybe he does have the title and he just hasn't said.
He just wouldn't tell you guys yet.
Yeah.
Just one day he'll like show you the paperwork. Like you signed this, remember guys?
Like you're all fired. Yeah. No, he did do the incorporation through like Stripe Atlas. So he probably is the CEO. And it makes the most sense. He's the leader. He is the leader of the group in terms of he's the most serious.
Yeah. No, that's exciting. I think it's really cool. I was super happy to see you guys at the top of Hacker News. That was incredible.
Yeah. I wish we were selling coffee when we hit the top of Hacker News. We got a ton of traffic to a sold out page. Yeah. We sold out in the first 24 hours, and it was right after that it peaked on Hacker News. So that was, hopefully we can do it again, I guess.
So was it a measured bet to have the amount in stock that you had, and then you just underestimated the amount of traffic? Or was it just literally that's as much as you could get?
Was it a measured bet? I don't know if we had any idea how well it would do right off the bat. I mean, we knew that like with the audiences involved, like we would sell some coffee. I think most of us thought we'd sell out. I don't know if we knew how fast we'd sell out. And in terms of the quantity, it was like 500 pounds of coffee beans, and just practically like having those delivered to Dax's house, bagging them ourselves. Like there's just a limit to how much we wanted to like do that. And it was kind of like a first run. We knew that like we had to do something more sustainable if it worked out. So if we sold all the coffee, we knew like we're going to set up with the roaster, and we're going to get set up where we're not doing the bagging and all that stuff. So I think it was just kind of like there was a limited quantity for that first run, and we knew it was only going to go so far, but we didn't know how fast it'd sell out.
That makes sense. It was impressive. I mean, 500 pounds of coffee, like you guys can move some product.
Yeah, there's a lot of coffee. I mean, it took some time to do the bagging and all that stuff. It was like a 3-day fever dream.
So you guys, and when I say you guys, I'm specifically talking about you and Dax. You guys like to roast indie hackers a lot. This business, correct me if I'm wrong, like you guys haven't raised venture capital.
Okay. So here's where I stand on indie hackers. I think Dax. So one, I should just say Dax rubs off on me. Like I'm very much over some time period, I become Dax because we spend a lot of time together. So I just like naturally start roasting things that he roasts. It's kind of part of it. But I do have like my own stance on indie hackers. I think for me, it's like, just like, it's a small business. Just create a small business and like actually put something on the line. I feel like indie hacking is this way to like, what is it? I haven't put real like thought into the words here, but I think it's kind of cope. I think it's like, I can do indie hacking and like, it's okay. It's never going to fail because I'm just indie hacking. There's no possible failure outcome here. Whereas I think if you like say, I'm going to start a small business and build stuff for this particular group of customers, same thing you're doing, but there's something on the line. Like you've said, I'm trying to do this. I'm making an attempt. It might fail, at which point I'll do something else. But I feel like the indie hacking is just like 1 foot in and you're just kind of like not committing. That's how I feel about indie hacking. I don't know. Dax probably has different reasons that he doesn't love indie hackers. For me, it's just like it's like, I don't know, feels cowardly. Just like put something on the line. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I do know what you mean. I'm going to draw some lines in the sand so we can have a fun discussion, I think.
I love it.
So do you happen to know who Rob Walling is? Startups for the Rest of Us, Tiny Seed.
Sounds familiar. Tiny Seed sounds the most familiar of those words that you just said. Yeah,
Tiny Seed is like his, first of all, great guy. I love Rob. Tiny Seed is like his little kind of investment, almost like you can think of it as like Y Combinator for like more bootstrapped stuff.
Okay.
And then Startups for the Rest of Us is his podcast. And I'm going to draw the line here where I think it's fair. And Cortland, the guy who owns IndieHackers, who I'm also a big fan of, would probably disagree with this. But just for the sake of our discussion, I'm going to say, let's define IndieHackers as people who are like starting tons of projects and like seeing what sticks. You know, like I'm trying a new project every weekend, trying to make it go viral, tweeting about it, building in public, like all that stuff.
Yep. I see that.
And then I kind of move up one level to like bootstrapped or mostly bootstrapped businesses where you're not taking venture capital, you're not raising millions of dollars. The goal isn't like a quick exit, but like you said, you're putting all your eggs in the basket of the company for like an extended period of time. And like you want to make it happen. Like that's how I've done boot dev. Like it's been I haven't raised venture, but like I'm all in on this bitch for a few years. Let's see how it goes.
That's not indie hacking, right? Like I agree with your definition here, because to me it has nothing to do with your funding or how, you know, like you're paying the bills. To me, I have no problems with businesses that aren't venture backed. I've done the one startup. It happened to be venture backed, but we did the first year bootstrapped, and I don't know, we built a different business. Maybe it would have gone a different direction and we wouldn't have ever raised money, but we happened to kind of go that path. I have no problems with people, you know, paying for their own thing. In fact, I think it's more admirable, if anything. So the indie hacking thing, maybe it is, maybe it's the multiple projects. Like maybe if somebody's a quote unquote indie hacker, but they only focus on one thing, maybe I have less problems with the approach, because I just feel like you're creating a business. You're making a bet and you're pushing on it. Whatever you want to call it, I can respect that. But I think there's this culture, the indie hacking culture, that there's something about it that just, it bothers me. I don't know.
To me, it's the non-committal nature of the thing. And that's why I'm also like, I want to be clear. Like, I don't think all people who use the term indie hacker are using it this way that we are describing it. Yeah. In fact, I believe, unless they've started up again, I was the second to last episode. I mean, I don't know if you knew who you were talking to right now, but I was the guest on the second to last Indie Hackers podcast episode like a year and a half ago.
When you say second to last, they stopped the podcast?
They stopped,
They stopped it. Which is Indie Hackers still a thing? Like the website?
Oh, yeah. The website's still around.
But they had a podcast and they stopped it, I guess.
Let me see if I can find it. Indie Hackers.
Did it have anything to do with your episode?
Dude,
did you get them canceled?
I actually hit up Channing afterwards and I was like, was it that bad? Like, you could have just not published it.
At least it wasn't the last, because now you got a little buffer. If you're the last episode, that's a little painful. You better keep this podcast going after this episode. Don't make me.
We just suspiciously stopped.
Yeah.
Oh, they added some more, I think. So I was like sixth to last. But
so
they did stop it.
They brought it back a little bit. Okay.
Well, June. It says June 2023 was the last one. So I think
is it safe to say that like they hit a peak in terms of, and I don't mean like as a business, but I just mean like the culture around indie hacking. It does seem like it's waned a little bit. Like maybe on Twitter, it's less like a badge of honor that I'm an indie hacker kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm just perceiving that because I just have self-selected into a different group of friends. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So to be clear, like I listened to literally every episode of this podcast when I was starting Boot Dev. Like I'm one of those people that like I do consume a lot, but I actually also build a fucking lot. And I feel like that's the way you have to do it.
You can do both.
Yeah. But like I'd go on walks every day. I've got like 2 hours a day to listen to podcasts. So like I'm pounding these things.
And probably at not 1x speed, right? Like if you're a frequent podcast listener, you probably speed it up a little bit.
No, I am a 1x.
Oh, you're a 1x. Really?
Yeah. I appreciate the medium, the art.
So I will say, sometimes I wish I wasn't in such a hurry in life, and I wish I just knew what these people sounded like, their actual voice. Because I will say, I listened to a book on Audible, and I normally listen to books at 1.7 or 8 or something. I don't remember. But I was listening to this one. Is like a sci-fi. Well, it's what's the book called? Project Hail Mary. Super good, by the way. I just want to talk about it at every turn. Just please, everyone that's listening to this, please listen to that book. It's so good. Anyway, I listened at 1 time speed because I realized like they're acting. Like there's like an actor's portrayal of this book. There's multiple people speaking. Like I'm ruining it if I'm listening at 1.5. So I get that sentiment. Like I get wanting to just enjoy. This is how it should sound.
Well, this is how I think about it. Like, okay, think about the last audiobook you listened to.
Mm-hmm.
Can you pull out 15 bullet points from that book, like just off the cuff? Like, okay, I remember these 15 really good points from the book.
Like a nonfiction kind of book, like 15 takeaways? Nah, not 15. I don't know. I hope I'm not ruining your point.
No, that is exactly my point. I can't either.
That's a lot of takeaways.
But my point is like
one or two things.
You listened to like probably 200 points, if not more, right? Like over the course of, I mean, these books are usually like 100, 200, 300 pages long. So I'm like not in a hurry to rush through it because I'm worried that I'll miss even more points. So I'm like,
I think I have a take on this and I haven't fully formed it. But nonfiction books in general, I feel like most of them could have been an email kind of thing. Like I'm getting to the point where the only nonfiction I really enjoy is almost like more of a fiction style, which is like biographies. It's not fiction, but it's like a story of somebody's life. There's not like some takeaway. An author didn't sit down and say like, how do I convince somebody that this is how they should think or whatever, like that this is some like takeaway they need to get. And then here's the sub points and all the, like any nonfiction books I listen to anymore. I listen to it and I realize like, that's literally like one sentence that I needed from that book. They could have just said like, hey, you should do this now instead of this. And then I'm good. And I listened to the whole 5-hour book to get that one sentence. So I don't know. I'm kind of like falling out of love with nonfiction. That's all I listened to before. Now I'm like dabbling in the fiction books and I still love biographies. I've always loved biographies, but I feel like the takeaways from biographies are just like, that was an amazing person and it was fun to learn about their life.
Yeah, biographies are the most long-winded. Okay, I agree, and then I'm going to disagree. The way I agree, I was listening to, I think it was Rob Fitzpatrick. I have to apologize if I'm remembering the wrong person, but there was an author that was talking about this idea that when you go to publish a book, you'll be pressured into making it longer. Because there's kind of like this ideal book length. And like you want it to look nice on the shelf and things like that. So you're like optimizing for things that aren't quite the content itself.
Yeah.
And so he's like, no, like let's write shorter books. Like let's just make our points and like it's fine that it's, 80 pages long.
That should be a norm. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm very much on that. Like I'm with that. Like you should not be adding like extra bloat to the books.
Yep.
But in the way I disagree is like the idea that like it could have been an email or a tweet is true, but I think there's something to like, you have to hear something over and over sometimes and like in different contexts and with different examples for it to like actually sink in. Because I consume like 500 tweets in a day sometimes, right? But I don't remember any of them. Whereas like I do actually like the points that were made in a book, I think stick with me a little bit longer.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like, that's very much a principle. Like of marketing and everything else that you kind of have to like drive the thing home. So I guess that's why these books are so long. And I will say like, I've still listened to that kind of book and enjoyed it. There's authors that I really enjoy that just write that kind of book. Yeah, maybe I'll walk this take back. Maybe I'm just exploring fiction for the first time and I'm realizing there's a whole nother world out there and I enjoy it. I never thought I liked fiction books, but they're interesting. It's entertaining.
Fiction's great. I read tons of fiction. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings enjoyer.
I see. That makes the boot dev thing make more sense.
Yes,
I get it now. You're building your own world, your own Tolkien universe.
Hey, if you're into fiction books, we have written now 4 chapters. We're writing a whole novel.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with code.
Novel? Yeah.
But it is just it's called The March of Time. It's just a fantasy novel, and it's the setting of like the meta game of boot dev. So as you're like going through and doing your courses,
could you
your AWS courses that should have been on boot dev, like when you're doing those, you've got this.
I need to understand more because I've seen like the stuff you share on Twitter. Clearly, people are very like hooked into the gamification. You have created like a video game that accidentally teaches people to code. Is that the idea? Like people don't realize that's what they're doing.
That is, yeah. I mean, I would actually flip it to that you're not accidentally playing a game. Well, there is an accidental there, but it's the other way around.
They're accidentally being entertained with a video game.
What we're going for is like you hit the landing page and you're like, "What the fuck is this? Like, this is just nonsense." And I think we've nailed that.
Check.
It makes you log in. good. Once you're in, you're like, oh shit, there's like a ton of content here. You start doing it, and then it's like this kind of fun RPG game. But yeah, so there's this world. Boots is like kind of the Gandalf, Obi-Wan Kenobi character. He's a wizard bear.
So there's a tie with the boot. Okay, keep going.
So Boots is this bear. He's kind of this archmage wizard. The main character, Balin, we never show his face because the implication is that he's you, the student, kind of being guided on this journey. But then the story just has nothing to do with code. It's just about Boots and Balin, and it's like this fantasy adventure nonsense. It's super fun. The game is like you're just doing coding assignments. You're doing coding lessons. It's all hands-on stuff.
And that's how you kind of like earn XP or something. You kind of like level up through the learning coding. You're leveling up in real life, but also in the game.
Yeah, there's
a double level up situation.
Yeah, and the goal is to become an archmage. You get all the ranks as you go up.
And you get a coin, I believe. I've seen people post the coin online. How many archmages are there? Archmagi?
Let me check the leaderboard.
Is that a thing you share, or?
Yeah, it changes every day. There, I think we're about to hit 100. We're at 144.
Wow! So these people have like committed hard, and they have like beat the game basically.
Yeah, these people have done generally over 1,200 lessons on the platform. It's like, hey, you got to dedicate if you want a coin mailed to you.
I'm so new to the course making, the teaching, the education world. Every time I hear like a number about like, so I Kent C. Dodds is working with the same people I'm working with, and I mean he
lives like right over there.
Oh yeah, you're on Utah. Yeah. So Kent, he is. I mean, he's already built the thing. Like Epic Web is like his course platform. I saw him tweet the other day about like making 400 videos for this supplement thing. Anytime I hear a number like that, I'm realizing how early on this journey I am. Like you've got students that have completed 1,200 lessons. I made like 5 videos, and I'm like, whew, that was hard. All right. But got a long ways to go.
I think you're doing the right thing. And I've never met Joel. Joel Hooks, Egghead, right? But he's one of the people in the industry that I have like a ton of respect for. I think
he knows the stuff for sure.
Yeah, and he's trying to do the right thing. Like the thing that like really made me want to get into making courses was some of the larger platforms that I felt like were just, there was a quantity over quality approach, right? Yeah. Like there's 700 Python courses and they're all mediocre.
Yep. Udemy.
And so,
sorry. Should I say that? Not say that? Edit it out. Whatever you want to do. I'll let you run with that.
The nameless platforms where anyone can upload a course, and it's basically YouTube, but it's paid. I was frustrated. I'm like, I want to have a course for every topic I want to teach, and I want to continuously update it. Like we update our courses like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a day. Like it's just continuous deployment to our courses. Like
technology is constantly moving, so that makes sense. That's a problem with college. Sorry, that's a whole nother tangent. But like computer science college stuff, I mean, they have to just resort to like teaching fundamental knowledge stuff because they can't keep up. There's no way a college can keep up in terms of curriculums and just the way that works. Yeah, but that's a whole nother conversation, I guess.
I agree. So tell us a little bit more about ProAWS. So you just did your workshop, right?
Yeah, so we just did the first workshop, first live workshop. It's very early. I mean, it's just like I've wanted to teach literally like as far back as I remember wanting to do a thing vocationally. I've wanted to teach. So the first thing I remember wanting to be, the first thing was I want to be a professional baseball player. After that, the next thing I remember wanting to be was a college professor randomly. So I've always enjoyed, like with my siblings, with my parents, when I learn something at school, I want to come home and I want to like explain it. And that, like to the point that it's annoying, like they don't really want to hear it. It's like they're being nice, but it's like, okay, I gotta finish lunch here. Like there's things to do. I just really enjoy that kind of like sharing things that I'm excited about. So I've always wanted to teach. And then I kind of went into programming. I was not like a kid that grew up on computers. Like I built like from senior year of high school, I built a computer as my senior project. And that was kind of my first getting into computers thing. And then in college, I worked at the Geek Squad and I studied computer science. But I was pretty late, like in terms of getting into computers. Never really like occurred to me, or I never thought about teaching software stuff. That wasn't like a thing. I just got into building software out of college. And then I guess it's been like a 15-year career. And at some point, it did occur to me like, like I could marry the two things. I could teach programming, two things that I'm passionate about. I'm very passionate about programming, and I've always wanted to teach. So that's ProAWS. I guess that's the thing I've spent the most time, at least the last decade, has been pretty absorbed with AWS stuff. So I built my startup on AWS. We've been building it for 10 years. And yeah, it's finally kind of like the timing's right. I'm finally, like, I've been an individual contributor my entire career. Like, I've always been shipping features and fixing bugs and doing this kind of thing. I've avoided a lot of the leadership kind of track, just being at small startups. Everybody's shipping stuff. But I'm finally at a stage where it's like there's a break in the clouds, and I can actually take a sec and say, hey, can I teach some stuff I've learned over the last 15 years? And it's AWS focused. It's proaws.dev. And yeah, I'm working with Joel Hooks and the Badass Dev crew, or Badass courses. Yeah, I'm very excited. Awesome. I don't know. It's still early, but I'm very excited. But I didn't tell you much about the actual thing. I just told you a lot of backstory that you didn't ask for.
I mean, the name is good. ProAWS.com, there you go. Right? Like, if you're interested in AWS, check it out. Until we ship our AWS stuff, then don't go see Adam stuff.
Oh, is there nothing on boot.dev yet?
There's nothing on AWS yet.
Okay. No competition. No, there's a ton of AWS stuff. I mean, like, I will actually say something about the content. So my focus, my angle, and I do think like everybody can teach this stuff, and there's angles for, everybody's got something different to share. My angle, a lot of the AWS training stuff is very like certificate, like get your certification track. So a lot of the education materials are focused on that. Mine is literally like, I am a web developer who has spent the last 10 years building on AWS. I've built consumer apps that have scaled to very large scale consumer app size. And I've learned a ton of stuff in 10 years building on AWS. So it's very practical, very like, I don't know, maybe everybody says that, like, my course is very practical. But it's very practical. It's very like, I'm not coming at you and trying to teach you how to like pass the AWS certified whatever, which I respect the certification thing. Like, I'm not trying to put it down, but this is just like, I'm a web developer. I want to teach other web developers how to harness this very powerful thing that is now very mature. And I think more web developers should play with AWS. So that's my angle, is like reaching other web developers who are like me, and they just built for the browser, but maybe they want to do something beyond that. Maybe they're at an organization where it's a startup, they're using AWS, but they don't feel like they're maybe using it the right way, that kind of thing. There, I said stuff about the actual content.
Yeah, go check it out. AWS for web developers.
It's proaws.dev now. That is how it started.
.dev? Okay.
Yeah, we also in proaws.com, but yeah.
Okay.
It's both.
Oh yeah, it redirected me. I didn't even realize. I typed in proaws.com. I got. Okay. proaws.dev.
Yeah, but you just hit on something. It started as AWS for web.dev. Like, that's kind of 2 years ago when I first started. That was a mouthful, and it's shorter now. So there you go.
I didn't realize you've been working on it for 2 years.
Well, I mean, 2 years ago I started the idea. Yeah, I put up a landing page, and then I got busy. And in the last 6 months to a year, it's gotten serious. Like, I'm actually spending quite a bit of time pushing it forward now. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Now, for everyone listening that's thinking about making a course and that is talented, that second part's important. Talk to me before you talk to Joel.
I do recognize that, like, it didn't occur to me at first. I'm very naive.
Joel got you first.
Well, you maybe reached out first, and I'm just very naive.
I don't think I did. I didn't talk to you until after I heard that
you saw
this whole thing was going. Yeah.
It was only very recently that it occurred to me. Oh, like, you're a competitor. You guys compete. Like, you're friendly, but like,
we don't. Like,
not really, but like, you're in the same space.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just did. I knew what you do, and I know what boot dev is, and like, I know it's education. It's teaching developers how to program or how to do things that are developer related. I think it is you guys have very different models, probably. Like, you
Our branding is at the very least very different.
I don't think Joel has worked with Breakmaster Cylinder, for one thing. It's a whole other conversation we could share. Yeah, I mean, like, I think the Badass Courses crew, very different angle than like, because it's like a bunch of different, it's like empowering individuals to teach under their own name. Whereas Boot Dev is much more like, you guys have a thing that stands apart from the instructors, and like it is its own IP, if you will. So it's like very different angles.
Is the way
a cult? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
that's
very top down, like authoritarian cult. Yeah. Badass.dev is like much more egalitarian, kind of decentralized power structure.
Like people might not know, they're much more in the background. Like people might not know that Badass Dev is behind Total TypeScript or Epic Web or whatever. It's kind of like more producers.
Yes.
And it's like empowering.
I've developed the eye for it. Like as soon as I saw your website, I was like, I know.
The header gives it away immediately. Yeah.
But most people, won't be able to. So I was going to say, this is something that really surprised me, and that I'm really happy that I'm in this industry, because when I first started making courses, I kind of had this I had this idea that the industry was super cutthroat, that like it was, very competitive. Like if I'm making a TypeScript course and you're making a TypeScript course, we're fighting over the same customers. Something that's pleasantly surprised me is that most of the students on Boot Dev also learn on other platforms as well. People, the prices are low enough in this industry when you're learning online, right? It's like $20 a month, $30 a month, $40
compared
a month.
to like going to college in the US or something.
Or like $100 course that sometimes your employer will pay for. That like people are very willing to take multiple things, try different stuff, see what they like, and a lot of times, multiple instructors share a student base. I
had to like beat it out of my head that like everything's already been said about AWS, because early on it was just like, what do I have to offer that? But now I realize like we need a lot more people teaching this stuff and from their perspectives, because it's actually like a lack of educational content, at least quality educational content that you kind of hit on. It's still feels early in the tech education space, like in the sense that we're not oversaturated with like good quality learning materials. So I've beat that out of my head, but early on I very much felt like it's all been said. What is there to say? You guys, you can go find it out there. Part of it's like curating. It's almost like your job as an educator is to like curate the information that's very important and in what order, versus like it's all out there, but good luck. Like get on Udemy and there's a million ways to learn any one thing.
I mean, like every lesson on Boot Dev, for example, like cites some sort, like open source, like Wikipedia, official documentation, blah, 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 blah. Like, and that's very telling. Like you could just go read that, right? But it's like really fucking hard. And it's not presented in this like linear order. It's not as fun. So like, I'm a big believer in like the internet in the 20s is going to be all about like making really high quality stuff, curating the information, because the information's all there for free. That problem's been solved for a while now. We just need to, be able to consume it in a more pleasant and effective manner, I suppose. Yeah,
more addictive, more gamified, more. I mean, I saw the page. You posted a page. People they're going crazy. They're earning the XP. They are learning, but it's so cool that like they're learning valuable like vocational skills while they're doing the thing that they're doing, the playing the game.
Dude, my favorite metric is the number of lessons completed in a month. I think this month we're on track to hit 1 million, which is like so excited because we haven't had that yet. But
that's awesome. We'll see. So many lessons.
But yeah, like, no, seriously, everyone that's listening, we're not going to be doing AWS stuff for a minute. We've got a ton of other content we're going to be making. Like, please go check out ProAWS.dev. And you're doing more than just like videos. You're doing workshops. You got downloadables and shit. Like, there's a bunch of stuff, right?
It's kind of a prescribed. I mean, you hit on like, you can tell when it's the badass folks behind it based on the website. There's also kind of like a schedule, a kind of a plan of attack that's consistent across all these things. So I'm working off of learnings from all the people that came before. And one of the things, the steps are sort of doing these live workshops to learn, what parts of the content make sense. What do people get stuck on? The live workshops are sort of like a test run for the self-paced course. So eventually later this year, there will be a self-paced course that you can, anyone can go and buy and watch and learn. But right now, we're just focused on the live workshops as a place to kind of like engage with real students who have these real pain points and learn, where are the areas that I can really help. So that's the idea. It starts with these live workshops, eventually turns into a self-paced thing.
Okay, everyone knows where they can find that. That's awesome. I was going to ask you about this. We were talking about this a little bit before we went live. So it takes a lot out of me to do these podcasts. Like I genuinely enjoy it, but especially like finding guests, just like scheduling guests, a bunch of administrative stuff. And then when I'm on camera, like again, I do have fun, but it's, you know how when people talk about introverts and extroverts, they're like, well, extroverts like get energy from being with other people. And introverts kind of like they need to recharge on their own. I am fairly extroverted, but being on camera does sap my energy. And I have noticed after last weekend hanging out with Prime in Montana, I don't think he's that way at all. I think his battery just keeps going up. He'll stream for like 6 hours. I was going to ask, like, you stream a lot. I couldn't do that. How do you, does it drain you? Do you like it?
Yeah,
how does that work?
I think so. Okay. I want to make sure and lay this out in a way that's not like, it wouldn't be offensive, but there's a difference in like interviewing somebody. So I had a podcast. Let's go this way. I had a podcast called AWS FM. And I started that podcast. That was my first foray into podcasting because there was a domain available, aws.fm. And in classic developer fashion, that was a reason to start a podcast. So I was interviewing, the whole premise of the show was just interviewing people from around the AWS community. And it was extremely tiring, to your point, to find guests, to schedule guests, to get on with guests and make it like an entertaining podcast episode where like we uncover stuff that they haven't just said 100 times on other podcasts. Like, that's not a lot of fun. And it was draining for me to get on there and interview people. Streaming, very different. So streaming on Twitch when I'm programming and it's just the same people keep showing up. There's a lot of recurring jokes. It feels like hanging out with friends. So I think being on camera is not the common denominator for me. Like there's a very different feeling when you're talking with someone that you don't have a lot of like past experience with. You're kind of like performing a little bit. Whereas on Twitch, there's some performing and there's some like, you're an exaggerated version of yourself, but you're kind of just hanging out with friends. And like for me doing the podcast with Dax now, that's just literally us getting on the phone and hanging out. Like that for me is just having calls with Dax every week. So it's not draining either. So it's not that we're not close enough, Wags. Well, we're not close enough. We should be closer. But like, you know what I mean? Like when you don't really have a ton of time spent with somebody, it's more draining, I think. And that's what an interview podcast is. Like you don't have a ton of back history with that person unless you just happen to have a friend on. So I think for me, that's the thing. Like that's what I love about my new podcast. Since we shuttered AWS FM, it's no longer interviews. We occasionally have friends come on the show, but it's super easy to do a podcast where it's just like getting on the phone with a friend every week because we don't have to plan it. We don't have to schedule people. We don't have to do any of the administrative stuff. So that's the difference for me, I guess.
See, I feel like we're friends because I listen to your podcast. You don't listen
for sure. And I don't listen to yours. Is that what you said? Okay, so here's what you need to understand. I don't listen to podcasts, which is a weird thing as a podcaster. I know you don't need this. I know, I get it. But like, I do want to defend that I have other friends in our space. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't listen to technical podcasts. Anything in our space. It's almost like I get enough of it at work kind of thing. I listen to like NFL podcasts, which is super random because I don't watch NFL games, but for some reason I listen to like 4 different NFL podcasts, which is super weird. So that's my defense is I don't listen to your podcast, but I don't listen to anybody's podcast.
You're too nice. I wasn't offended at all. I just, my podcast is made for like kind of beginner, people kind of leveling up as programmers. You're not the target audience. No, weirdly I feel like I am the perfect target audience for TomorrowFM. Like genuinely, like even if I didn't know
I want to hear more about that because I don't know who our audience is. It's the podcast has done really well. It's growing, but I still like, if I were to like give the elevator pitch for our podcast, I don't know what to say. Like, it sounds cliche or just stupid to be like, it's like Seinfeld, like it's a show about nothing. Because it's not a show about nothing, but it's also like, I feel like one of the things we struggle with is we don't really have like a pitch. We don't really have like here's why you should listen to our podcast. Because I don't know why anyone should. So I'd love to know like, if you feel like you're the target audience, what is it about you that I could then extrapolate to other potential audience members?
Well, I just think about, the topics you guys touch on are all just interesting to me. So like maybe I'm just this nice Venn diagram of kind of what you guys talk about. You talk a lot about web development, talk a lot about business, right?
Yeah.
I would say if you look at the other stuff I listen to, it's usually like marketing and business stuff because again, like I wouldn't listen to a coding podcast because I know how to code. Like I've been coding for over a decade. Like I've got that part, down. So like I don't listen to other people's coding podcasts either. I wouldn't listen to this podcast. Like, sorry, listeners, like this isn't what I'd listen to.
I wouldn't listen to my own podcast either. So I get it. Yeah.
I'd listen to this podcast if I was in school or like if I was starting over, but like,
I feel like you actually know who should listen to your podcast. And that's the thing I wish I had is like a reason anyone should listen to my podcast. Because I don't. Indie hackers? Maybe it is. Maybe we should stop making fun of indie
obviously
hackers.
Trying to reform indie hackers is the...
Oh, Dax will like to hear that. I'll let him know. That's our audience. That's our target.
You guys do owe me 4 podcast episodes now, by the way, because I've had Dax on twice and you on twice.
Wow, has Dax been on twice too? I think I have heard your podcast because I think I caught Dax's episode early. Yeah, I didn't know he's since been on.
He was episode 2. I mean, I don't mean to like rub it in your face, but
just right before me. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
And then he came back. I don't know, a month and a half ago.
Oh, was he really? I got to catch that one. You got to come on our podcast 4 times in a row. 4 times in a row. Or let's just record one time. Let's just do like 3 hours in a row, and then we'll cut it up into 4 episodes.
And then release it into 4 episodes.
Yeah. This is back-to-back weeks.
You guys, I've felt intimidated by your pod because like we were both kind of on pace with each other in terms of number of episodes. And I was like, okay, if Dax and Adam keep doing it, I can keep doing it. And then all of a sudden you guys started doing 2 per week. And so now you're like up to episode 80 and I'm still in like the 50s.
So we did a stretch of 2 per week, and apparently it led to burnout because then we took like 3 months off. So now we're back to once a week. When we came back, we started back at once a week.
Did I not catch up? You guys must have also started before me.
I think we did. I think we're almost 2 years now. I think we're actually at 2 years now. But we did take like a hiatus there in the middle.
I'm seeing your episode with Dan Abramov. By the way, congratulations on getting Dan Abramov on. That's awesome.
Yeah, Dan was great. We're coming up on episode 100. I'm very excited about it. I've been saying things about episode 100 for a very long time. Like I've been counting it down since like episode 70. And we're going to do something special. We're going to do a little something special for episode 100. I'll just say that. Cool. It's going to be fun. We're having Wags on. No, I'm just kidding.
The way I would plug TomorrowFM to my listeners is like, especially if you're into kind of a non-traditional, like if your priority in the next year or two isn't just to go get like an entry-level tech job, but your priority is more around like building a business or doing something a little weird, like coffee in the terminal, like you'll like TomorrowFM.
Coffee in the terminal. If you happen to be thinking you're going to sell coffee in the terminal in the next year, that's super coincidental. You should listen to our show because we have lots of tips.
Yeah.
On that very specific thing.
Also, you might want to listen on 2x speed though, because sometimes you get religion and dinosaurs for a full episode.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We just don't have, that's the thing though, that's made it so much easier. We literally spend 0 minutes like preparing for the podcast. We don't have a Trello board. We never pre-plan what's going to be said on a podcast. We literally just hit record and start talking. And I don't know, maybe everyone does that, but like for AWS FM, that was not how it worked. I spent time putting notes together, like planning what I'm going to ask this person, learning about this person if I didn't know much. But with the Tomorrow podcast, it's super easy. It's like, it's sustainable. I know I can do it forever because it's just call Dax and hit record. It's great.
I imagine that's the nice thing about having a co-host that you're always with, that you can like keep riffing on past jokes and stuff. Because yeah, like with me, it's one-on-one conversations for the most part. And yeah, like I got to do a ton of research on the person. It would be super embarrassing if I invited someone on and knew nothing about them. Like,
Yep. No, I've been there. I have a notebook full of AWS FM notes and it's a lot of work. I admire what you're doing. How many, you've said 50 something you said?
I think what's released so far is like 57. I think you're going to be episode like 60, 61 this time around.
Okay. Yeah, I burn out at like 30 something on AWS FM. It was too much work.
That's when it like you really have a little come to Jesus. Like, okay, am I really doing this? Like, are we doing some more?
Yep.
So
podcasting's an interesting, I could talk about podcasting all day because it's such an interesting like subculture. And if you've never done it, I just wish everyone would, well, maybe everyone does start a podcast. I don't know. I wish everyone would try it just to like be able to put themselves in that position for a bit, because it's a totally different experience from anything else.
If you're going to do it, don't be a bitch and give up before episode 10 is like,
do at least. Yeah. I feel like I've heard those statistics, like the number of podcasts that don't have more than 2 episodes is like absurd. If you just record 10, you're already in like the top 10% or something stupid.
That was what I told myself. I was like, well, I cannot give up before episode 20. And then by the time I got to episode 20, it was like, 1,000 downloads per episode. I'm like, all right, like let's
I can do this. I can do this long term. Yeah. No, the interviewing thing's tiring, but it is fun. It's fun to have, like, especially for you, knowing who you're kind of like trying to help with your podcast. AWS FM, I don't even think I had it with that. It was just like, I knew people that care about AWS will listen to this, but I didn't know like the individual people, what they all share in common.
Yeah.
Need to figure that out.
For me, it's mostly been, because rewind just 15 months, I didn't know anyone like from this space, like from Twitter. Yeah. I didn't know you, Dax, Prime, I didn't know anyone. Didn't know any of the tech YouTubers. Like the biggest thing to me has just been like having people on and being able to chat with them for an hour and a half. Like I just have a lot more friends now.
Like, yeah. Oh yeah. That's that. I mean, that's how I started. I think like AWS FM was my, before Twitter, that was how I started meeting people in the AWS industry. I mean, in that space. And that was really, I mean, that's a lot of friends I still have today that I've met at conferences and that I've spent actual time with. Started there in that journey. The AWS FM thing kind of led to becoming an AWS Hero and just, made a ton of friends. It's the friend catchers thing. I can't remember who coined that phrase, but like the more you just like put yourself out there in the world, the more people you find you have a lot in common with, or that you resonate with that person, and you just kind of attract new friends at all times. So I went like 12, 13 years as a developer doing nothing on the internet. I mean, like, probably lurking a lot, but not making anything or saying anything. It's a very lonely existence. I encourage developers, if you're listening to this, do something. Start a podcast, tweet, do something. You'll find a lot more friends that way.
All right, now let's get weird with it.
Ooh, my favorite.
So at the very beginning of the pod, you'd said you had, and I've listened to you and Dax talk a little bit about this, but Dax shut you down, and I'm just going to let you go. I'm going to let you fly and spread your wings on at least the episode I listened to. I want you to tell, if you're willing, it sounded like you were at the beginning, to talk a little bit about, like, you said you were religious growing up in the Midwest, and then you're not so much anymore. Like, do you want to tell that story just a little bit?
I would love to. I don't remember Dax shutting me down, but he does shut me down a lot, so they all probably blur together. I grew up. I mean,
I think you shut you down. Like, if I actually think back,
that's probably just like I'm oversharing. This is too much, and I do want to be sensitive to like. I'll try all this. I want to be sensitive to my family. Like, I don't think they're going to listen to this because at this point, like, I'd have to tell them that I'm on this podcast,
Dude,
but I'm not going to say
with
anything.
The kids, I don't know. Like your son is.
I don't know. My parents might be on boot.dev right now, leveling up.
They're probably not our target audience, but I don't know.
So I think like, and I don't want to be offensive to people who share the faith that I left, because I know, having been in it. So for 25 years, I was a Christian. And I would say in the Ozarks, that's just like the default. I mean, that's just kind of like where I grew up. It's the Bible
like
Belt.
Non-denominational? Or did you have like a...
So my dad grew up Southern Baptist. My mom grew up Assemblies of God, which these are 2 denominations within the Christian faith, or within the specifically Protestant, I guess. So there's like, there's Catholic and Protestant. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. Grew up like in the thick of Christianity, in the thick of Western Christianity, I guess I would say, like in America. And even like my parents to this day travel and sing gospel music. Like I grew up in, not just in church, but in a lot of different churches. Like we went to a different church every weekend where they would sing. So I'm very much like entrenched in the culture. I don't want to offend anybody who's enjoying their place in that world. And I know when I spoke about it on our podcast, I felt like there's a lot of things I should have said, and I got out of the episode and felt like like I know all the counterpoints. Like I lived in it for 25 years. Like I know when people hear me say certain things, they think, well, you didn't really understand, you didn't really accept this particular part of the faith. And I would just say to all that, like I was in it for a long time. So in adulthood, my wife and I both came to very similar places without talking to each other about it. Because that's the other thing. It's very hard. I'm sure it's this way with a lot of different religions and faiths. You're kind of expected to be with somebody who also shares that belief system. And it's kind of like taboo to be married to somebody or to be close to somebody who's not. But we happen to kind of like go on the same journey at the same time over like a year and a half, which is kind of bizarre, but we kind of like figured out that the other was feeling the same way. Anyway, in short, I think a lot of it was just like Western Christianity turned us off in a lot of ways. I think there are probably places in the world where it looks different. But here it's so tied up in America with like American politics, oddly, at least like the flavor of Christianity in the Midwest that I grew up in is very tied up with a very certain worldview. And I didn't share that worldview and still don't. And it's hard for me to like separate the two. There was like a lot of like cross pollination between odd political societal beliefs and religious beliefs. And it's just like couldn't untangle it all and just said, you know what? I'm good without it. What I would say today, I've always felt like I'm not a super spiritual person. My wife is probably more spiritual than I am in the sense that like, I'm not a materialist, but I'm much more like concerned with the actual things I can touch and feel and see. But I feel like I've come to a place, I'm almost 38 years old, where I'm actually okay not having a lot of answers. There's probably like some name for this. There's probably like some like, I don't know, people would be like, oh yeah, clearly you're a autist or something.
Agnosticist or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah. I don't know. There's probably some name for it, but like growing up, we had to have answers for literally everything. And it was almost like this very fear driven, like if I don't have answers, my world will crumble. And today it feels very refreshing to not have answers and to feel like I do think there's more to the world than just what I can touch here on my desk. I think there's just something. It just doesn't all feel like random happenstance to me. Like for whatever reason, like I just can't accept that this is just all for nothing. But at the same time, I have no idea, and I'm okay with that. And I wasn't necessarily okay with that in my early 20s. So that feels like something. I probably gave you way more than you wanted. Sorry.
No, that's good. I had a lot. I didn't want to interrupt. I have a lot of potential follow-up questions, though. Let's start with this one. Would you say that you kind of, distanced yourself from religion primarily for like truth-based reasons or epistemological reasons, like I don't think this is actually true, or more like cultural reasons, like I'm concerned with like how this is impacting my life and the things that I have to do, and like I don't know if that distinction makes sense.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, it definitely started culturally. Like it was just, I mean, in America, there's just a certain sect of Christianity that honestly is just repulsive to me. Like, and I don't want to offend people that live in this world. And it's not all of Christianity, but it's a certain branch of it that just kind of makes me sick to my stomach. I think that was all cultural. And that's what really pushed my wife and I away from the church, that we felt like we just can't be part of that. I can't associate with this certain worldview. And then I think over time, once that initial, because it's very hard to leave something you've believed for 20 plus years. Like it's a hard thing. Like you go through a lot of stages of separation with that. It's not just an instant you wake up and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not that. It was like a painful year and a half of trying to figure out, well, this was a big part of my life. Where am I now? You feel kind of like you're lost and wandering and all that. Once I got out of that, I was able to kind of like think about it more intellectually and like kind of figure out what I do care about. And with having kids, I've got an 8-year-old, I've got a 4-year-old, and it's something that I don't want to just leave them with nothing. Like I don't want to just like, I have nothing. I believe I'm an amoeba of spirituality. Good luck in the world. Like I want to have some structure to how I feel and believe about everything, the big questions in life as they start to have them. So I've had more time, I guess, more time to kind of like intellectually process what it was about my prior faith that doesn't resonate now. And I have some early thoughts, but I don't know if I'd be in a position to share all that just yet. Yeah, it was cultural totally to start though.
That's a couple of things that are interesting there. So the first is that you said it took like a year and a half for you to kind of fully, I don't know, transition out or however you want to say it.
Yeah.
And that was very similar like time frame for me, about a year for me. I don't know why it
it's painful. I mean, it's a drawn out process. It's not a cut and dried thing. It's like all of your relationships, your family, there's so much tied into it beyond just like, here's what I fundamentally believe. I mean, it's a very messy situation. It's like a divorce.
It is in a lot of ways. The other thing that was, or the thing that was very different for me was that for me it was the opposite. And I think that it might be, maybe it's less common, but so I served like an LDS mission, a Mormon mission in Paraguay for 2 years. It's like I was like very, very invested. Read the Bible, the Book of Mormon many times, and for me, there was just a bunch of stuff that I realized that I hadn't realized before, and like to be fair, in my teens, like I did not do this like thorough investigation that we all like to think that we would have done in our teens, right?
No,
of like,
is just grown up
is
in
this
it.
stuff like, true? Is it not true?
Right.
It's like, no, you kind of just assume it true. You give a ton of benefit of the doubt to it.
Yeah, your parents are a big influence. You've got this authority figure in your life, and like a lot of things you just kind of accept as truth because they came from your parents, and then I don't think that's wrong. It's a reality. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So when I left, it was very much like an epistemological like stake in the ground. Like, okay, actually, this is not it. Like, this is not true. Yeah. And then it took a while for me to like, kind of look back at some of the cultural stuff that I, the way I'd grown up, beliefs that I had, and like, pick them apart a little bit. And to be fair, I think for an ex-Mormon, because there's like a whole stereotype of ex-Mormons in Utah. I'm very, like for an ex-Mormon, I think I'm very appreciative of Mormon culture in a lot of ways. Like there's a lot of stuff that I have held on to that I do really like, stuff like, family values and things like that. That a lot of times when people leave, they kind of like, I don't know. I feel like there's sort of like a psychological urge to like, actually everything they did was terrible.
Yeah. Yep.
So I've tried to make like a very conscious decision to like try to look at everything that I'm doing, holistically.
And take the good forward. Yeah, leave the bad behind, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's been tricky. So like there's certain cultural things that later, of course, I switched. Like I said, like I started drinking coffee like a year later.
Yeah.
And I wish I wouldn't have done that because now I'm addicted to coffee.
Maybe there was something to stick with there. Mormon said.
Yeah. It was about the caffeine, turns out.
Well, can I ask you a very personal question? I mean,
yeah. I'm going on Glauber Costa's podcast in like 2 hours where we're just going to talk about religion. He's doing like religious people in tech. And I was like, I can come on, but I'm an atheist. And he's like, that's fine. And like, we'll do it.
That's awesome. Oh, I want to hear that. I will listen to that podcast. That's not tech. So, and you kind of got ahead of my question, I guess, which is like, and I throw the labels out. Just, I want to figure out how to ask this question. You said you're an atheist. You believe like what? Yeah. I mean, in terms of like, I know what you don't believe, but like, what have you come out of? Because this is something I struggle with. This is not me asking like an interview question. This is like, I'm trying to figure out for myself, what do I want to have in this place in my life? Like what structure in my belief system do I want to have? You believe like it's all like, how do you answer the big one? The why, the why did anything happen? Why is there anything when there could be nothing? Do you go that far? Do you care? Is that just stupid philosophy stuff that we don't need to think about?
Luckily for you, I listened to you puzzle about this for about an hour on your podcast. So I've got a lot of context going into this question.
Yeah. You know where my head's at. Yeah.
Okay. So I do like the label atheist. And the only reason I like the label atheist over like the label agnostic is because my only concern with the label agnostic is that a lot of, especially like religious people, will look at that label as like he's like super wishy-washy on this. Like, he's maybe 50-50, like right in the middle. Like maybe there's a God, maybe I'm not. Like I'm pretty, the way I phrase it is like, I have no good reason to believe that there's a God. I don't go so far as to say I know there's not. I think that's an insane statement. Like,
sure,
you can't know that. But like, I just say I have no good reason to think that that's the case.
Yeah, when I said throw out the label, it was mostly because like, I don't feel like I know the definitions and I don't want to like get confused because you said a certain word and I should have known what that meant. I think like the not knowing. So I very much now in this place, 5 years, 6 years, 7, whatever it's been after the transition out, I very much reject the idea of like a person that is God, like the God that I was taught about growing up. I leave this like, maybe this makes me agnostic. I don't know if maybe this is the wishy-washy part. I leave this like opening for me where like there could be something behind it all. I don't know if that's a God, if that's a something. I don't, this sounds super weird, but I do reject the idea of like a God figure that is like us, or that is like, that has like a person. God, I think is that has like a personal, like that has like a personality, or that has like, I reject that. But then I feel like I also am not an atheist, I guess, because I don't believe. What does it mean? What does atheist mean? I don't even know. I don't think it's all just what we can see. And I think there is some kind of spiritual something there, and I'm just lazy and I haven't gotten there. That's how I view it. It's like I view spirituality as this thing that I need to eventually spend some time with. And I guess, do you feel like there is such a thing as spirituality? That's my question. Now I'm the interviewer. This is my podcast. Sorry.
Yeah. No, this is great. This is my podcast now. So there were a couple things there. The first is I think people have very different definitions of atheist. So I try to, like, when I talk to people, figure out what theirs is so that I can maybe map it up. Because like I said, I think a lot of religious people have this definition of an atheist that's like, you believe there isn't a God. And that doesn't work for me. Like that's too black and white. But at the same time, I also don't like the commonly accepted like agnostic, which is like very wishy-washy. So like, it's a whole problem. Do I believe in spirituality? I think this is like funny. Definitionally, just by definition, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to believe in the supernatural in like an overt sense. It's like if we can observe it, then by definition it becomes natural, and now we understand it. Kind of like how we figure out lightning. Now we don't have to attribute to Thor anymore, but like we don't say it's supernatural. Maybe it felt supernatural when you were living in Greece, right?
Right. At some point or earlier in history, we didn't know atoms existed at the like tiny scale, and then we saw them. That doesn't mean they went from supernatural to natural. I see what you're saying. Like they didn't suddenly become something else because we observed them and figured them out. There's lots of things we haven't figured out and haven't observed, but that doesn't mean those are supernatural. I think I'm tracking. Continue.
Yeah. And then like when it comes to like, spirituality or like spiritual but not religious kind of stuff, I mean, there's lots of ways to get yourself into an altered brain state. I mean, you do cold plunges, right?
Oh yeah.
Like that's a fucking altered brain state. Like
that's a good point. Yeah. I thought you were gonna say you do something else. I was a little like nervous about what you were about to say, and then you said cold plunge. Like, yes, I do cold plunges.
But like, I mean, drugs, hallucinogens, like there's a lot of ways to get your brain into like a weird state. That like, feels very different. I think we, for the most part, understand like, well, I mean, we at least understand that we're in a weird state at the very least.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, I'm not, like I said, I have no like reason to believe in any specific, like, universe that gives a shit about me kind of stuff. You asked about like the big question. This is to me,
that's the one that that's the only one I really care about when it comes to this conversation. Because that's the one I get stuck on.
Right. Why is there something instead of nothing?
Yeah.
My assertion is that nobody knows, and that even though I thought I knew when I was religious, I still, like, my own theology didn't explain it. In the sense that it just pushes it back a step. Like, it's really frustrating to me. It's like, okay, as a missionary, I was preaching like, the first pitch as a missionary is like, do you know why you're here on earth? Right. Like, do you know what our purpose is? Yeah. And then you like tell them the purpose, right? Which is like to go back to live with God in heaven. And there's this whole, but then it's like, well, you just have to ask why a few more times. Like, well, why is there heaven? Right. Like, why do we,
I think we're on the same page, because I think what I did is I came to a place where I was okay not knowing the answer to that question. I think that's what I'm trying to articulate, is that before I felt like I was in a worldview that had to understand the answer to the why question. And now I'm in a worldview that's like, feels kind of nice to not have any answer and to be okay with that. Like, yeah, I could never answer that question. So why spend any time trying? Because it's okay for it to just be a mystery. Like there is stuff and there could have been not stuff for some reason. And that's okay. I kind of like the mystery, actually. It feels nice.
It feels nice to not be tied to an answer and have to like fit things into that presupposed answer, which is what I felt like a lot of the times when I was learning about, like I was just learning science in school and was like, oh shit, got to come up with an explanation for the dinosaurs, right? Like got to figure out how to fit this one in.
Yep. But that's how the dinosaurs came up, isn't it? That's how now I see it. I see why me and Dax brought up that. Yep.
We're in full circle. And like, to be fair, like there's tons and tons of Christians that like have no problem with like, dinosaurs and evolution and are very on board with modern science. And one thing that I've been really surprised by, and I'll probably bring this up on Glauber's pod as well, is like, I've been very surprised that at least in my professional interactions, I have not found that like religious people tends to be more or less intelligent or well-knowledged, more knowledgeable or well-educated than non-religious people, at least in my circles. Like I've had incredibly intelligent, wonderful conversations with people of faith and people not of faith. And that's been, I would say, like when I was like especially egotistical when I originally left the church, like at 24, it's like, oh, these religious people are nutbags. Like I don't believe that anymore. And I think there's I mean, there's, and I don't want to call out individuals because I just feel like then it's like, oh, I didn't call out that person and they're going to feel like I think they're an idiot. But yeah, I mean, like looking at people that are not like in our circles, as a Christian, C.S. Lewis was like, if that guy believes this stuff, I feel good that I believe it because he's so much smarter than I could ever be. There's definitely people like that on all sides of all of this, in every religion, on every non-religion. Like, yeah, definitely not a dividing line. I will say the part of Christianity that I was not a big fan of, I felt like skewed on the uneducated side. And that's more about where I live than about what they believe, if that makes sense. I'm just throwing shade at the Ozarks, and I think the Ozarks can deal with it because they're not listening to this, so that's fine. Yeah, I mean, there obviously is a certain like there's levels to these things, and like I do really still struggle with like young Earth creationism, right? Like believing that the Earth's literally 6,000 years old.
That's the thing.
Which it's funny, like I would actually be interested to like hear, Kent is like very open about his Mormonism, so I don't think he'll mind me mentioning. But I think I'd be interested to hear what he thinks about young Earth creationism. If I had to guess, is that he's not a young Earth creationist, but I do know that like a lot of, like my grandparents, for example, I believe are. I know it was like much more common a few generations ago.
Oh, I mean, in Christianity in this area, it's very much, I think it's the default.
Oh, really?
Worldview. I think so. Yeah. I mean, where I grew up, that might be a very specific context, but I mean, it is a very specific context. I don't know that that's Christianity on whole, but I don't think it's like an out there thing where I come from.
Yeah. And it like is getting less common, I think, every decade
probably.
Or so. And so it's like in the 50s, like I think that also kind of was, just the more of the default belief, and it's changed over time. But yeah. Well, cool. I'm excited. Now I'm all pumped up for the next podcast I'm recording here.
I'm very excited.
You prepared?
Please DM me when that comes out because cool. I will not know where to look, and I would like to hear it.
Sounds good, man.
There's good people.
He is. Just last plugs. ProAWS.dev. Check that out. What's your handle on Twitter? Remind me.
It's Adam.dev.
Oh, you changed it. It wasn't always Adam.dev, was it?
It used to be a lot of things, yeah. No, it's now it's Adam. Like spelled out, Adam.dev.
Adam.dev. That's like the boot dev handle. It's boot.dev all spelled out.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. When your handle is basically a domain, you just spell out dot.
Very cool. Well, thanks again for coming on, Adam. This was a good time.
Having me.
Hopefully chat with you again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Lane. See ya.